Imagine France, a land of breathtaking beauty, rich culture, and deep history. The year is 1789. The year is 1789. The country is on the brink of monumental change, though few can see it coming. The air crackles with discontent. Whispers of unrest echo through the streets and countryside. King Louis XVI, aloof and out of touch, sits upon his throne. His reign is marked by extravagance and detachment from the common people. He is oblivious to the storm brewing beneath the surface of his opulent court. The lavish halls and grand banquets mask the growing unrest. France, for all its beauty and grandeur, is a kingdom in chains. These chains are not of iron, but of social and economic disparity. The chains are heavy, forged in the fires of inequality and injustice. The gap between the rich and the poor is vast and ever widening. The common people, the peasants who toil in the fields and the workers who crowd the cities, are burdened with crushing taxes. They struggle to survive. Their lives are a daily battle against hunger and hardship. Meanwhile, the nobility and clergy enjoy lavish lifestyles, shielded from the realities of everyday life. Resentment simmers. The opulence of the elite stands in stark contrast to the poverty of the masses. Intellectuals and philosophers whisper of liberty, equality, and fraternity. In salons and coffee houses, ideas of enlightenment and reform are fervently discussed. Their words, carried on the winds of change, ignite a spark of hope in the hearts of the downtrodden. These ideas challenge the very foundations of the old order. But this hope is a dangerous thing. It is a double-edged sword, promising freedom but also threatening chaos. For it carries with it the seeds of revolution. The desire for change grows stronger, fueled by the injustices faced by the common people. This is the story of the French Revolution, a time of great upheaval, of violence and terror, but also of immense hope and transformation. It is a tale of a nation rising against tyranny, of a people demanding their rights, and of a society on the brink of profound change. The revolution will reshape France and leave an indelible mark on the world. France, in the late 18th century, was a nation on the brink. The bustling marketplaces, once filled with the vibrant chatter of merchants and buyers, now echoed with the murmurs of discontent. The air was thick with a sense of impending change, a palpable tension that seemed to hang over every transaction and conversation. Decades of economic mismanagement had left the treasury bare. The financial strain was evident in every corner of the country. Public works were left unfinished, and the infrastructure that once supported the thriving economy was crumbling. The common people bore the brunt of these failures, their livelihoods eroded by the incompetence of those in power. The extravagance of the royal court, coupled with costly foreign wars, had drained the nation's coffers. Lavish parties and opulent lifestyles of the nobility stood in stark contrast to the growing poverty among the populace. The disconnect between the ruling class and the common people was never more apparent, as the glittering halls of Versailles seemed a world away from the struggling villages and towns. King Louis XVI, though well-intentioned, lacked the decisiveness and leadership to steer France away from the precipice. His inability to implement meaningful reforms only deepened the crisis. The king's indecision and reliance on unpopular advisers further alienated him from his subjects, who increasingly saw him as a symbol of the old regime's failures. Adding to the turmoil was a series of bad harvests. The once fertile fields of France yielded less and less, leaving farmers and peasants struggling to make ends meet. The agricultural crisis exacerbated the already dire economic situation, pushing more families into poverty and despair. The price of bread, the staple food of the common people, skyrocketed. Bread riots became a common occurrence as desperate citizens clashed with authorities over the soaring costs. The inability to afford basic sustenance highlighted the growing inequality and fueled the anger of the masses. Hunger stalked the land, fueling discontent and desperation. Malnutrition and starvation became widespread, particularly in rural areas. The sight of emaciated children and the cries of hungry families became a haunting reminder of the government's failures. The people looked to their king for solutions, but their pleas fell on deaf ears. The monarchy's detachment from the suffering of its subjects only intensified the growing resentment. The king's inability to address the crisis eroded the last vestiges of loyalty among the populace. It was in this climate of despair that the ideas of the Enlightenment took root. The intellectual movement, which emphasized reason, individualism, and skepticism of traditional authority, offered a glimmer of hope. Enlightenment thinkers proposed radical ideas that challenged the status quo and inspired a new vision for society. Philosophers like Jean-Jacques Rousseau and Montesquieu challenged the very foundations of absolute monarchy. Rousseau's concept of the social contract and Montesquieu's advocacy for the separation of powers resonated deeply with those who yearned for change. Their writings provided a theoretical framework for a more just and equitable society. They spoke of popular sovereignty, of the rights of citizens to have a say in their government. These ideas were revolutionary, suggesting that power should derive from the consent of the governed rather than divine right. The notion that ordinary people could influence the direction of their nation was both empowering and incendiary. Their words, once confined to salons and coffee houses, began to resonate with the masses. Pamphlets and books circulated widely, spreading Enlightenment ideas far beyond the intellectual elite. The common people, inspired by these new concepts, began to envision a different future for themselves and their country. France was a powder keg, primed for explosion. The combination of economic hardship, social inequality, and the spread of revolutionary ideas created a volatile situation. The old order was crumbling, and the desire for change was becoming irresistible. All that was needed was a spark. The stage was set for a dramatic upheaval as the forces of discontent and aspiration converged. The seeds of revolution had been sown, and the world would soon witness the birth of a new era in French history. The spark came on July 14, 1789. The Bastille, a symbol of royal tyranny, stood as a grim reminder of the king's absolute power. Within its walls, political prisoners languished at the king's pleasure. On that fateful day, a Parisian mob, driven by fear and fury, stormed the fortress. The fall of the Bastille was more than just the seizure of a building. It was a symbolic act of defiance. It signaled the end of the old order, the beginning of a new era. News of the uprising spread like wildfire throughout France, igniting similar revolts in towns and cities across the land. The revolution had begun. Section 4. Terror and Triumph. The Revolution's bloody cradle. The French Revolution was a time of great upheaval and violence. It was a period marked by the clash of ideals, the struggle for power, and the quest for justice. The streets of Paris echoed with the cries of revolutionaries and the clamour of change. The old order was being dismantled, and a new one was being forged in the crucible of conflict. The Reign of Terror, a period of extreme paranoia and bloodshed, saw the rise of Maximilien Robespierre and the Committee of Public Safety. Robespierre, once a champion of the people, became synonymous with the very terror he sought to control. The committee wielded immense power, and their decisions often meant life or death for those accused of counter-revolutionary activities. Thousands were sent to the guillotine, accused of being enemies of the revolution. The guillotine, a symbol of swift and merciless justice, became a common sight. Families were torn apart, and fear permeated every corner of society. The revolution devoured its own children, as friends and allies turned against each other in a desperate bid for survival. But amidst the chaos, there were also moments of great hope and triumph. The revolution was not just about bloodshed, it was also about the birth of new ideas and the promise of a better future. The spirit of liberty, equality and fraternity inspired countless individuals to dream of a world where justice and freedom reigned supreme. The Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen, adopted by the National Assembly in 1789, proclaimed the fundamental rights of all citizens, regardless of their social standing. This groundbreaking document laid the foundation for modern human rights and became a cornerstone of democratic principles. It was a bold statement that all men are born and remain free and equal in rights. It was a beacon of liberty, not just for France, but for the world. The ideas enshrined in the Declaration resonated far beyond the borders of France, inspiring movements for freedom and justice across the globe. It was a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit and the universal desire for dignity and respect. The revolution was a messy, contradictory affair. It was a time of great ideals and brutal realities, of noble aspirations and harsh truths. The path to progress was fraught with challenges, and the cost of change was often paid in blood. Yet, despite its many contradictions, the revolution left an indelible mark on history. It was a time of both great progress and terrible tragedy. The French Revolution reshaped the political landscape, challenged the status quo, and set the stage for future revolutions. It was a period of profound transformation, where the old world was torn down to make way for the new. The legacy of the revolution is a complex tapestry of triumph and terror, hope and despair, progress and sacrifice. Section 5. A nation adrift, from monarchy to anarchy. With the execution of Louis XVI in 1793, France entered uncharted territory. The monarchy which had ruled France for centuries was no more. The nation was now a republic, but it was a republic in turmoil. The revolution had devoured its own children. Robespierre and his allies, once hailed as heroes, became victims of the very terror they had unleashed. The guillotine, once a symbol of revolutionary justice, had become an instrument of fear and oppression. France, exhausted by years of revolution and bloodshed, yearned for stability. Section 6. The rise of Napoleon. From chaos, a conqueror. Out of the chaos emerged a new figure, Napoleon Bonaparte. A brilliant military strategist, Napoleon rose through the ranks of the French army, seizing control of the government in a coup d'etat in 1799. Napoleon was a complex and contradictory figure. He was a dictator who crushed dissent, but he was also a reformer who modernized French law and administration. He was a conqueror who led France to dominate much of Europe, but he also spread the ideals of the French Revolution throughout the continent. Napoleon's reign marked the end of the French Revolution, but it also ensured that its legacy would endure.